Residential report writing and case studies. Page 27, reconciliation. Once the appropriate approaches to value have been considered and developed, we move to the next step in the appraisal process: the reconciliation of those indicated values derived from the three approaches to value. This is the final step in the development of the appraiser's value opinion. Reporting is the final step in the overall appraisal process. The reconciliation process involves the appraiser's competence and knowledge of the subject market area. You must take into consideration such things as supply and demand for similar properties in the neighborhood, competition, substitution, quality of the data, quantity of the data, and the appropriateness of the data gathered and analyzed. Which approach or approaches are most appropriate for the property being appraised? Which approach or approaches are the most reliable because good data was available? All of these factors are considered in relation to the intended use and conditions of the appraisal. Reconciliation is not a mechanical process. The appraiser should never simply average the value indications from the approaches to value into an opinion of value. Instead, the appraiser should carefully consider the applicability and suitability of the approaches used and the quality and quantity of data that was available for use within the approaches. End of page. Page 28, reporting the appraisal. The final step in the overall appraisal process is reporting the appraisal. Up until this point, the appraisal process has been about developing the appraisal to arrive at a credible opinion of value for the subject property. This last step in the appraisal process involves communicating the results of that development, including support for the analysis and conclusions that led you to that final opinion of value. The report should state clearly just what was required of the appraiser, what the appraiser did, and how he or she did it, how much research was necessary for the assignment, what data was used, and if any of the approaches were excluded from the analysis process, an explanation of the reasons. Competency, independence, impartiality, and objectivity are the key terms that guide the appraiser throughout the appraisal development and reporting process. End of page. Page 29. Types of reporting. Written versus oral. Effective communication is absolutely essential for the appraiser. Yet it is a skill that is often overlooked. Most of the analysis and reasoning used to develop the appraisal has to be documented. Usually, this documentation is in the form of a written report of some kind. Electronically transmitted appraisal reports are considered to be written reports. The written documents support the data, analysis, and conclusions leading up to a credible opinion of value. The report may be written using a pre-printed report form, or it may be a narrative type appraisal report. An intended user will read it, and he or she must be able to understand the analysis and reasoning that led you to your conclusions. You can also give oral appraisal reports. In that case, someone is going to listen to your presentation and supporting information. They must be able to follow the reasoning that prompted your conclusions without having the benefit of any written correspondence. Oral appraisal reports are recognized under USPAP. However, this type of report is not permissible for mortgage lending appraisal assignments qualifying as federally related transactions. End of page. Page 30. Reporting for a federally related transaction. If the appraisal is intended for use in a federally related transaction, it must be presented in a written report. As stated previously, an electronically transmitted report is considered to be a written report. For a real estate related financial transaction to qualify as a federally related transaction, the transaction value, sales price, or mortgage amount must be greater than $250,000 and be serviced by a federally regulated financial institution. The federal regulators include the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, the Office of Comptroller of the Currency, OCC, the Federal Reserve Board, FRB, and the National Credit Union Administration, NCUA. Please note that the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, passed in 2010, eliminated the Office of Thrift Supervision, OTS, as a federal financial institution regulatory agency. Appraisal reports, whether written or oral, must conform to certain standards and rules for licensed and/or certified appraisers. Those rules are found in USPAP. Standard 2, Real Property Appraisal Reporting. Most appraisal reports also must comply with certain user standards and individual client requirements. Information relating to these standards, rules, guidelines, and additional requirements will be brought to your attention throughout this course. End of page. Page 31. Effective communication. Effective communication, the skill associated with communicating your thoughts, is being able to convey that particular analysis and/or conclusion in such a way that the reader will understand what you did, how you did it, and why you did it. Your communication must be appropriate for your client's level of understanding of the whole appraisal process. If there are other identified intended users of the appraisal, they must also be able to understand the report and be able to follow your reasoning for your stated conclusions. To paraphrase some of the requirements found in USPAP, Standards Rule 2-1, each written or oral appraisal report must contain sufficient information to enable the intended users of the appraisal to understand the report properly. All conditions used in the appraisal assignment must be clearly and accurately disclosed in the report. An additional statement may be found in the scope of work rule. The report must contain sufficient information to allow intended users to understand the scope of work performed. Yet another reference to adequate reporting can be found in Advisory Opinion AO-36. An appraiser's obligations to other intended users may impose additional development and reporting requirements in the assignment. Your expressed reasoning and written comments must pass the test of being understood by the client and any other identified intended users. The amount of information required in the report will vary from assignment to assignment, depending on the intended users of the report. In some cases, it might be possible to summarize the analysis with abbreviated comments, while other assignments will require more comprehensive explanations. End of page. Page 32. Writing. Some appraisers regard report writing as the most boring and tedious part of the appraisal process. However, writing does not have to be boring. Writing can be exciting. Writing can be challenging. Writing is different from the spoken word. Writing is a learning experience. We write differently than we speak. When we are speaking, we can use voice inflections. We can slow down for effect, or we can speed up our delivery. We can use both verbal and non-verbal signals to make sure our listener understands what we are talking about. When we write, we have only the words on paper. We can put the words in bold print, and we can underline or italicize them to draw attention to them. But basically, it is simply a written word on a piece of paper or a computer screen. One of the rules of internet and email correspondence states that when we write a message using all capital letters, we are shouting at the person who reads it. There are even abbreviations specifically used for corresponding on the web. LOL is laugh out loud. SUL is see you later. BCNU means be seeing you. BTW translates to by the way. TTYL says talk to you later. These rules have developed over time